Thank you very much for coming. Today, I want to talk to you a little bit about the data behind esports and competitive gaming. I mean, we've all heard the hype, right? And esports is everything. You've seen the stadiums full of players. But where is the money really? And where is that going? And more importantly, what can you guys actually do about it? So I want to cover some of that. And I don't want to go to that slide yet. One of the things that I want you to know is that we've gotten a lot of our data from our business partners in Twitch. We have the Amazon App Store. We've done our own research, and we've also gotten a lot of research from Newzoo, a third-party research company that we worked with to get a lot of this data out. Now, why do we do this? Well, Amazon owns Twitch. I don't know if you guys know that, but we bought Twitch a few years ago, and we've seen the incredible amount of business that they're doing, most of it in competitive gaming. And so we're thinking, are you guys serious? Are these numbers real? Are they sustainable? And in our effort to kind of dig into that, we found some pretty interesting stuff. So I'm really happy to be able to share that with you today. First of all, what is competitive gaming? Why don't I just say esports? Because competitive gaming is any game where two people in real time will compete against each other. Yes, you have e-gaming, stalwarts like League of Legends and Counter-Strike. But I mean, tic-tac-toe is also competitive gaming. So is poker, online poker. So there's a really good chance that you may be thinking about developing something where players can compete head-to-head. And while it may not be at the level of an esports title yet, you certainly have a competitive gaming title. And that all fits in that concept of competitive gaming, of which esports is a subcategory. Now, how do you go from being kind of a competitive game into kind of the realm of esports legends? Well, it helps if you can fill a stadium full of people who want to actually watch other folks play your game, assuming you can't fill a stadium full of people. It also helps if you have a lot of people who are willing to watch other people play your game. And again, we own Twitch, so that's actually a really good place for us to start looking at people who watch other people play video games. Now, if you're not familiar with Twitch, it's an online service where someone who's the person that you see in the second arrow from the left there, she's the broadcaster, and she's playing the game League of Legends that you see there marked gameplay. But she's not playing this just for her own enjoyment or for her team's enjoyment. She's playing this at the moment for about 25 people who are watching. Not a huge audience, but 25 of her fans are watching at the moment. And they're all chatting with each other and with her using the interface on the right-hand side. And you can see on the left-hand side, she's asking for donations. Because, when you have people who are willing to watch you play, if you're entertaining or instructive, you can actually monetize that. So in this session, she's got one huge fan who's given her $300 in US. But in tiny type down at the bottom that you can't see, it shows her total is just under $600. Which isn't bad if you've got 25 people watching your channel, watching you play League of Legends. I play League of Legends without getting paid at all. I don't know about you guys, but you can get paid for this if you're fun and entertaining. And as it turns out, Susie Soar is really entertaining, and she's really good and shows people a bunch of cool stuff. This is sort of like one of the default views. Notice that she's got some cute little animals over here that she's put on her page. You can also do a serious customization as well, so that you can take a game like Hearthstone, you can see who's playing up in the upper left, and you can see the people who are chatting with her underneath her picture. So there's a lot of UI flexibility. There's not endless flexibility, though, and that's a point I want to get to a little bit later when we talk about how you guys can work with your apps and games to make them eminently streamable and watchable. But first, I want to ask you guys about who's watching and who's playing these games. And this is sort of the audience interaction part of today's lecture. So I want to start with a question to you guys. How many million man hours did it take us to build the Great Pyramid of Giza? Anyone? Guys in the back, I promise to pick on you guys. Give me a number. 30 million? Actually, that's really good. It is around 30 million. 33 million hours is what modern scientists think that we invested in building the Great Pyramid of Giza. That's a lot of hours. But it's not as many hours as we spent watching the most watched item on YouTube. Now, the most watched item on YouTube actually has changed a bit. It's no longer 140 million hours. It's 230 million hours. It's a Spanish music video. Anyone know which Spanish music video it is? I've forgotten the name, but it's a really catchy tune. And we have spent 230, very good. Very nice. Good job. I'd give you a prize, except I don't have anything. And we've spent 230 million hours watching that video on YouTube. Okay, that's nuts. How many pyramids could we build for that music video? All right, but that's not as bad as it gets. In the United States, we have a college basketball tournament that we call March Madness. And a whole bunch of teams, 64 teams, hold this elimination tournament to find out who the best college basketball team is. Not even professional basketball. But we spent 650 million hours watching that tournament last year. That's a lot of hours we spent watching college basketball. Hey, go figure. Well, anyone have a guess on how many million hours we spent watching other people play video games? Okay, we've got one guess, no Mike, billions. Okay, well, we'll go with billions, because I like that. Because the answer is 4.8 billion hours we've spent watching other people play video games. And that's just on Twitch. That doesn't include YouTube or other places people watch competitive games. That's a lot of hours. Imagine what could happen if we learned how to monetize those hours. Well, that's a heck of an idea, isn't it? So let's get started in taking a look at where some of this money is coming from and where it's going. So the first thing is that Asia Pacific has an incredible number of players and viewers. These are people who either play competitive esports or actually watch esports on a regular casual basis. A little over half of all of the players and viewers come from Asia, Southeast Asia. The rest are divided between North America, Europe, and rest of world. So if you ever wanted access to a very lucrative Asian market, esports might be a really good avenue to help you guys get there. Now, let's take a look at a breakdown of the audience a little bit. It's not just hardcore fans that are watching esports, actually. Casual fans are a big part of esports, too. By casual fans, I mean people who don't watch more than once a week. In 2017, for the first time, there were more casual esports fans than hardcore esports fans, people who identify as being both viewers and players of esports. If this keeps going, again, we'll start generating more viewing hours from casual viewers instead of the hardcore players and viewers. And that's a pretty good growth point. That's a good growth inflection point. It also pays to know what some of the other good growth inflection points are. And I want to call those out because we're going to get a view of whether we're growing slowly, at a medium level or really quickly as a result of this. So things that I want you guys to look out for kind of in the industry is we could be seeing in 2020 a $2.5 billion industry in esports if things grow really quickly. If they don't go really quickly, it's only going to be about $1.1 billion industry. Honestly, our estimates are about $1.5 billion. And it's going to depend on things like whether or not local markets can pick up franchises and have local teams. It's going to hinge on things like whether rules and regulations around different games come into being. I mean, you guys know in Europe, competitive football has all kinds of rules in it. Penalty rules, time rules, corner kicks, goal kicks, all these kinds of different substitution rules. Now imagine if League of Legends adopted kind of similar rules for how those games and teams were allowed to be structured, how they weren't allowed to be structured, and if there were rules and regulations on how they could build their teams to play League of Legends. It doesn't seem like that makes a lot of sense because it's kind of outside the structure of the game itself. But when those regulations start to get introduced into a sport, most often it's because it makes the sport more accessible to viewers and easier to understand by audiences. And that's going to be key to understanding that these are becoming really mass market and not just games for the people who play them. Who's investing? Where's all this money going to come from? Well, let me tell you a quick story that is happening in the United States right now and actually all over the world. ESPN, huge sports network. Everybody loves watching ESPN. Well, actually about 200,000 fewer people every month love watching ESPN. Those people are mostly millennials. They tend to be males between the age of 25 and 35, and they're cutting the cord. Or they're getting all of their TV and sports entertainment online, and they don't need ESPN for that. This obviously makes ESPN and their parent company, Disney, just a little nervous. So what you end up with is companies like ESPN and Disney investing a lot more in esports teams and investing in sponsoring esports tournaments and esports players. The people who are really good at Call of Duty, they're earning $80,000 a year from the sponsorships that they're picking up. I mean, that's not small change for people who, up until recently, were considered game addicts living in their mother's basements. So that's a pretty healthy change for esports in general. Another number that I really want to call out is it's not just PC gamers that are doing this as well. 40% of the people who consider themselves esports enthusiasts get all of their media, all of their entertainment on mobile devices. So mobile games like, Hearthstone and things like that are becoming esports-enabled games. So now one of the most rapidly growing segments of devices is now marrying with the most rapidly growing segment of competitive gaming, esports. And that's a convergence that's really important for you guys to understand and being able to take advantage of. So knowing that, let's drill down and take a look at some of the big names outside of ESPN that are kind of following these trends. One of the reasons that the companies that you see down here are investing is because it does help them reach that 25 to 35-year-old male demographic, and that's an incredibly valuable demographic. And when you take a look at how many people in that age group watch esports on a regular basis, you get more people than watch basketball or hockey in the United States on a regular basis. Let me say that again. There are more basketball and hockey fans and there are more esports fans in the U.S. than hockey and basketball fans. 22% of the people in that demographic watch esports on a regular basis. Next thing, goals have become, esports has become a spectator sport. And when you take a look at the 200 million plus occasional viewers that are out there, 40% of them don't even play the games that they're watching. Okay, how cool is that? I might be a really big Counter-Strike fan. I might like watching it, but I've never had to play it. So you're not just participating with people who are players of the game. You're participating with people who just enjoy a well-played game. That's another indicator that things are going really well. Last thing is, it has a ton of potential. If there were as many paying fans as basketball has, we would be making this much money in esports today. $2, I think, billion is how much money esports would be making today if our fans paid as much as basketball fans make. Okay, so monetizing the viewership and monetizing the fans is really important. And a lot of that is going to come from the sources of revenue. Now, what you're going to see is the total revenues that are growing here are primarily driven by big companies. They're media rights, they're licensing deals, and that's money exchanged by big company to big company. But an increasingly large amount is coming from brand investments in players, brand investments in teams, and sponsorships of individuals, and people paying tickets to join the thousands of people at Madison Square Garden for the League of Legends semifinals. So we're coming really close to where those investment revenues, the sponsorships of individual teams, are going to start taking over some of those larger corporate investments. And that's a really healthy inflection point to see in the industry, because it means that more of that money is filtering down to a lower level in that ecosystem. And it's really exciting to see the revenue growing with our audience. So, speaking about revenue and audience, 660 million is what we saw in 2017 for the esports revenue that was taking place. A little bit more than half of it happened in South Korea. Not just Asia in general, but in South Korea. They're obviously leading the charge in the market. We see Asia and China coming together to make up about a half together with South Korea, the rest being made up in North America primarily, with the rest of the world holding on to a little bit. So basically, most of that money is coming from South Korea, China, and North America. If these are markets that you want to be in or you're comfortable with, you can count on a lot of the money coming from your presence in those markets. If the primary presence of your market is Europe only, it's not going to have as much attractive power to that kind of money, to where that bankroll is coming from. So think about, if you want to do this, think about making sure that your games are going to work well in South Korea and North America as well. Given that, what do you do with your games to make sure that they're attractive to players and viewers in those audiences? Well, it just so happens that I did bring a few ideas with me that I get primarily from looking at Twitch games that do and don't work really well. The first part is UI flexibility. Remember when we looked at those two Twitch screens with a pretty standard layout and then a pretty customized layout? One of the reasons that they do that is so that they don't obstruct key game elements that are on the screen. The last thing you want to do is cover up important information because I need somewhere to put the picture of the streamer. So if you have a flexible UI and you either leave a lot of space at the bottom of the screen where people can put their streaming information, or you let me reposition information windows around my user interface, I can build my Twitch stream into unused space so that we don't block any important information. And that turns out to be really important in the long run, because here's a great example of the spot on the bottom. Because we need to account for situational awareness. Situational awareness, what does that mean? So, as a player, you know a lot more about your position in the game than does your opponent or someone who's tuning in to watch. I like to think of a basketball game, going back to those college basketball tournaments I talked about. Imagine you see two basketball teams. One guy is standing on the court, and he's just made a shot for the basket. Okay, big deal, right? Unless you know that there are only 9/10 of a second left in the game, it's the national championship game, and the score is tied. Now, that shot becomes a whole lot more important to the rest of us because we understand the context of that shot, which is exactly what we've got going on in a place like this. Users need the context of what's happening in the game in order for them to understand what's going on. And a lot of times rules changes in games occur to help make it easier for spectators to watch. When you watch American football, The rules are insane, aren't they? But a lot of those silly rules actually make it easier for someone who's just watching TV to watch a game that's a little bit faster paced than it used to be. And those rules are supposed to help the entire sport make more money because that's out there. So if we were taking a look at this, we might not know why this particular game is important. But by adding context, we can see, oh, hey, take a look over there on the left. It's 3-3 in a best-of-7 series. That means that they're playing the last game right now. Okay, I may not have watched the other game because I didn't know why it meant something, but now I know that this is the game that's going to decide the winner, that's going to decide the champion. So make sure that when you are looking at designing your game for streaming, you figure out how you're going to give viewers context into what's going on so they know they need to care. Recognizing that your audience knows that they need to care kind of gives us a different perspective on the traditional model in the industry. For the longest time, we've really been worried about making our players happy, right? Because if you have happy players, they spend money. If they spend money, you're doing really well. Esports and competitive gaming actually changes that whole model because now we've got an audience out there, and the audience could be spending money, like the donations we showed you earlier. That guy who made a $300 donation to Susie Sor. Nice donation. So now you've got to think about not just making your players happy so they can generate revenue for you, but how do you make your viewers happy? How do you deliver a really good gaming experience for your viewers? One of the ways that you can do this, actually this is kind of exciting. When you watch a sports game live, you get to talk to the people immediately around you, right? Okay, that's fun. When you watch it from your TV, maybe you can take out your phone and you can chat with all of your friends about it. But in either case, as a spectator, you can't change the outcome of the game. There was a Super Bowl commercial several years ago where a bunch of guys in a bar are watching these two American football teams go at it. And the bad guy team, the team they weren't rooting for, is running down the field and they're going to make a touchdown. So this one guy picks up his double super secret remote control, pushes a button, and a sprinkler head pops up out of the field and trips the runner. Everybody in the bar cheers because he's just saved the Super Bowl for his team. Okay, it's a fantasy that's even in Super Bowl commercials, is being able to change the outcome of a game as a fan. What if I told you that as a game designer, you could do this? You could give your fans a perfectly legitimate game-balanced way to change the outcome of the game they were watching. And it's not that hard to do, actually. Twitch has a feature called Twitch Play that lets any member of the audience who can chat actually impact something that you've decided that they could impact in the game. So I'll show you how easy this is to code up in just a little bit. How many people in the room are actually developers? How many people here write code? Okay, you guys are going to get this. You guys are going to love it. I'll make it fast for the rest of you, and I'll explain what's going on. But it's really neat, because imagine if you've got a game not unlike League of Legends, and you want the audience to participate. Maybe in a game similar to League of Legends, you could have power-ups or special healing powers for your team, and each side gets 3 of these. Well, if I'm a really big fan, I want to at least control when I drop one of those power-ups. But I mean, you're also a big fan, and you want to control when one of those power-ups is dropped. And so do you, and so do you, and so do you. So what we can do as players is we could ostensibly bid on it, or maybe we could buy a package of power-ups, and we can use 3, and then when the other side uses their 3, we can keep going to maintain game balance. How would that work when you write the code? Well, it would work something like this. I work for Amazon, so of course this is Amazon Lumberyard being used as a game engine here. And I've got just a sphere on the field here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to launch a Twitch window. In the Twitch window, I'm going to type the word bounce. When I hit enter, my ball bounces. So it's now possible for people who can enter keywords in that chat window to go ahead and affect the code that you're writing. And here's how easy that code is to write. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring over a physics object. And it's going to take that sphere and it's going to give it a physics input that makes it bounce. Not a problem. But now I need to do, on start, I'm going to connect to a Twitch channel. My Twitch channel is Lumberyard Bot. And I'm going to look for the keyword bounce. Now, on start, I'm going to go ahead and instantiate my Twitch channel, listen for bounce, and when I hear bounce, I'm going to activate that physics object, that physics moment, and make the ball bounce. That's all I had to do in order to get my Twitch channel to listen for someone to say bounce and it move the ball. Now, you guys can imagine how easy it would be to drop power-ups, to send in landmines, to do all kinds of evil, nefarious things to teams or players that the fans can now do so that they're no longer just spectators in your game. Fans are now participants in your game. And if fans can participate in your game and help your game monetize by buying these interaction moments, think about how much value you could get from that. Pretty soon it's going to be to the point where we don't talk about total lifetime value of a user or net revenue per paying player. We're going to talk about net revenue per playing spectator. That's going to be important, particularly considering how large the audiences are going to be of games they don't even play. So, what to do about that in terms of next steps? The next steps are actually fairly simple and straightforward. First of all, watch and play games on Twitch. If you haven't gone to Twitch and watched games, see it, take a look at what it's about, and play some of the games so you get an idea about the lag time between the interactions and how some of that stuff works. 2, empower your community. Even if all you have is a game of Go or a game of chess, but it's real time, player versus player. Figure out how you set up tournaments. Okay, actually, you don't have to figure out everything from scratch. There are companies like GameSparks that actually have a lot of these tools that are already made for you, like player matching, and they can help you do player matching. All you need to do is expose that functionality through someone like PlayFab or GameSparks to expose that to your community so they can actually set up those tournaments, or you can help them set up those tournaments. Next thing is your players who do stream your game. These guys are the most valuable people in your marketing life. If they're streaming your game, they're telling the entire world that they're fans of the game that you've written. You cannot buy an advertisement that is worth as much as promoting one person who streams your game. So if you don't have a Facebook page or a website, get one today. They're cheap, they're free. And when you find someone who streams your game, or if you can convince a friend to stream your game, you promote that person like they're a rock star. Why? Because when other people see someone playing your game and having a good time, chances have just gone up that they'll want to go and play the game themselves, which is kind of the first step. And they'll want to watch people who are having a great time playing it. And that step's a little bit down the road. But I mean, that's super important. So if we can get a fair number of people involved in this, that's great. Now, how do you get that curve? If you turn the first person who streams your game into a rock star, there are thousands of people out there who want to be the next PewDiePie. You probably know several of them. How are they going to become the next PewDiePie? Because they want to broadcast content that really makes their users excited and happy. So if you turn one of your streamers into a rock star, a future PewDiePie streamer is going to go, wait a minute, I want to be a rock star too. I want that kind of attention. I want that kind of promotion for my stream. So if I start streaming this guy's game, maybe he'll turn me into a rock star too. And yeah, you bet, you do that. Everyone who streams your game gets mentioned on your website or on your Facebook page so that streamers know that when they play your game, you're going to do your honest best to turn them into rock stars. And pretty soon, people are going to start taking a look at the Twitch streams or at the YouTube streams, and they're going to say, wow, there are like 5 people streaming this guy's game. I should check it out. It looks like it might be kind of fun. Anyway, it's a really good, virtuous cycle. And it starts with you treating the people who stream your game like gold, like the rock stars that they are. And absolutely build your game or design your gameplay with the audience in mind. Obviously, it's still got to be fun to play, but as important as it is to play, it's got to be fun to watch. If it's not fun to watch, the streamers aren't going to pick it up because it's not going to turn them into rock stars. People aren't going to monetize when they actually start watching your competitive game. So you guys can actually take a lot of advantage of the trends in competitive gaming without actually having to be League of Legends or Counter-Strike. You don't have to be an eSports franchise to take advantage of all the numbers that we just saw. And that's how you guys have a shot at getting started. So there's a bunch of detail I didn't tell you, but we can get you this. We've got a book out here on working with the Amazon App Store. Just go to bit.ly, Amazon App Store book, and you can download the PDF. We're currently out of hard copies at the show today, but at the next conference you go to, head over to the Appodeal booth. I usually have a stack of those books that Appodeal distributes for us. So next time you're there, go visit Appodeal or just download the PDF of the book here. And that's what I've got for you guys. If you have any questions about what we've just talked about, I'd be happy to start answering questions.